This might be the end of an era. The Golden State Warriors are heading into the 2025-26 NBA season knowing one thing. This could be the last dance for Stephen Curry. The front office won't say it publicly, but the message is clear. Time is running out. The window for another championship is closing. The roster is aging, and the team had one of the slowest, most frustrating off seasons in years. And yet, somehow, there's still hope because Stephen Curry is still here, because Jimmy Butler is still here, and because as long as those two are wearing Warriors blue and gold, nobody is ready to write the final chapter just yet. Let's start with reality. The Warriors are maxed out financially and physically. They reached the salary cap ceiling months ago, which limited their ability to make big moves during free agency. They didn't complete most of their signings until nearly 3 months into the summer, putting them behind almost every other contender in the league. But even with limited flexibility, the goal remains the same. Make one last run at a championship with Stephen Curry at the center of it all. The team's leadership from GM Mike Dunleavy Jr. to Steve Kerr knows that time is no longer on their side. Curry turns 37 this season. Draymond Green is 36. Jimmy Butler is 36. That's not a core built for the long term. That's a team chasing one final shot at glory. Let's break down the changes. New faces. DeAnthony Melton, G. Seth Curry, G. Al Horford, C. Tevion Kinsey, G. Will Richard, G. Big loss. Kevon Looney, a longtime anchor in the paint and one of the most reliable rebounders of the dynasty years. On paper, it's a mix of familiar veterans and overlooked depth pieces. Al Horford's signing drew the most attention. A 38-year-old center who still stretches the floor, passes well, and defends with IQ instead of athleticism. The question is, does that actually solve what Golden State needs most? Well, yes and no. Last postseason, the Warriors were bullied inside. Against Houston, they struggled to protect the rim. Against Minnesota, they got crushed on the boards, especially when Curry sat. Draymond Green, at this stage, simply can't play full-time center anymore. That's why adding Horford was more than a luxury. It was a necessity. He brings shooting, leadership, and size, three things the Warriors lacked in crucial moments. Even at his age, Horford still ranks among the smartest defensive bigs in the league. He communicates, switches, and spaces the floor. The perfect complement to Curry's motion-heavy offense. Is he the difference between a title and another early exit? Maybe not, but he makes the system function again. So here's what the Warriors' 2025-26 lineup looks like. Starters, G. Stephen Curry, G. Buddy Hield, F. Jimmy Butler, F. Draymond Green, C. Al Horford, bench. Gary Payton to Brandon Pajit, Quentin Post, Anthony Melton, Gui Santos, Seth Curry. It's a mix of veteran shooters, defensive-minded wings, and one of the most unselfish superstars of all time, but there's no hiding the truth. This roster is old. There's experience, yes, but not much youth or athleticism outside of Gui Santos and a few developmental guards. Speaking of Gui Santos, the Brazilian forward could quietly become one of the most important pieces of this team. With the departure of Looney and the slow decline of Green's mobility, Golden State desperately needs energy, hustle, and toughness off the bench. And Gui brings exactly that. He might not be a big-name player, but every contender needs a guy who dives for loose balls, defends multiple positions, and brings fire when the starters look flat. That's what Gui has become in San Francisco. A player who embodies what the Warriors culture was built on, effort and heart. Then there's the never-ending saga of Jonathan Kuminga, once considered the future of the franchise. Kuminga's relationship with the organization has been rocky. He's talented, athletic, and still just 23 years old, but his fit has always been awkward in Kerr's system. The truth is, both sides seem ready to move on. The team doesn't fully trust him. Kuminga doesn't see a path to growth with the current roster. He's still on the team for now, but his future is clearly heading toward a trade. The earliest possible trade window opens on January 15th, and his $22.5 million contract could make him a valuable piece in a mid-season deal. That's why Golden State is keeping him on the floor early to raise his market value. So what could a Warriors trade look like? Right now, the biggest rumor floating around the league is Bam Adebayo. It's not realistic at the moment. Miami values him too much. But it's an example of the type of player the Warriors are hunting. A younger big who can defend, rebound, and switch across positions. The Warriors know they can't just stack more veterans and hope for the best. They need someone who can carry them physically when the season grinds into March and April. But until then, the roster is what it is. Small, experienced, and reliant on Curry's brilliance. Stephen Curry and Jimmy Butler are both under contract through 2026 to 27. On paper, that gives Golden State 2 seasons of security. But in reality, this feels like the final push. Curry's body has held up remarkably well, but 37 is still 37. He can't carry 40-minute nights across an 82-game schedule anymore. Jimmy Butler, meanwhile, is as competitive as ever, but he's been through deep playoff runs and injuries of his own. This pairing makes sense emotionally to veterans who care about winning above everything, but the physical toll is undeniable. That's why the front office calls this season the window, because once it closes, the rebuild starts. The Warriors have entered previous seasons with optimism before, but this time it feels heavier. There's nostalgia, there's pressure, there's also acceptance. Everyone knows this version of Golden State won't last forever. The dynasty that began in 2015 has slowly transformed from the Splash Brothers to the Survivor Squad. They're not the fastest, not the flashiest, but they're still dangerous when it matters. And for Curry, this isn't just another year. It's about legacy. He already has 4 rings, 2 MVPs, and changed the game forever. But one more championship at this stage of his career would put him in an entirely different conversation. It would be the perfect ending to the greatest shooting career the sport has ever seen. Here's the problem. The West is stacked. Denver still looks like the team to beat. Minnesota is loaded with size and defense. Oklahoma City is young, hungry, and deep. And then there's Phoenix, Dallas, and Memphis, all capable of winning any night. Golden State, on paper, doesn't match up perfectly with any of them. They're older, slower, and smaller. But what they have is experience and Stephen Curry. And sometimes that's enough. Because we've seen it before. When the lights are brightest, the Warriors play their best basketball. The Warriors management understands exactly what they are. A proud, aging contender with one last chance. They don't have to say it out loud. The roster says it for them. This team isn't built for the future. It's built for now, for this year. For this chance, they'll push the roster to its limits, explore trade options for Kuminga, and hope Horford and Green can hold up defensively deep into spring. They're betting that Curry's brilliance and Butler's toughness can carry them far enough to justify one more run. The beauty of this story isn't just basketball, it's emotion. It's the sense of finality that every fan can feel. You can already imagine it, Curry walking off the court at Chase Center, hearing the fans chant one more time, knowing that the dynasty that redefined the NBA might finally be nearing its end. But that's what makes this season special. It's not just a fight for a trophy, it's a fight against time. So, how far can they go? If the roster stays as is, the Warriors are likely fighting for one of the last direct playoff spots, maybe the 7th or 8th seed in the West. They'll win games off experience and shot making. But the physical wear and tear will show if a mid-season trade happens, if Kuminga's contract turns into another impact player, then things could change dramatically. The ceiling is still there. It just requires one more big swing. Every dynasty gets one last chance. For the Spurs, it was Duncan and Kawhi in 2014. For the Lakers, it was Kobe's farewell seasons. And now, for Golden State, it's Curry's turn. The last dance. The final push. The final reminder that greatness doesn't fade quietly. It fights until the very end, because if you've watched Stephen Curry's career, you know one thing for sure. He won't stop until the last shot falls. So what do you think? Can the Warriors make one more run at the title? Or is this truly the end of an era? Drop your thoughts below. And if you love deep NBA stories like this, make sure to subscribe, because this isn't just basketball. This is legacy. This is the last dance.